ruining the society. YN mindset ruining the society. Yep, look at chicken. Yep, I believe it. Actually. Yep, I believe it. Definitely ruining it.
Now, if you're on certain spaces of TikTok and social media, I'm sure a lot of people have heard the term YN. Not to be confused with Young Ninja. YN stands for Young Nigga, which is a slang popularized by rap culture. The term is supposed to represent young black men, mostly teens, and is heavily associated with the image of a black face, often in connection with erratic behavior, which 99% of the time involves hurting people, whether that be stealing, robbing, or just being belligerent. However, this term is not defined by skin color. It's more a mindset that the new generation of young people are taking on. We're talking about children as young as 10 being influenced by the behaviors that come with this term, and they're being influenced by it through different forms of media, social media being the main one. But we also have music, specifically rappers, promoting this way of showing up in the world. A lot of the violent behavior from young people being publicized on social media right now can be connected to this mindset as well. And in this video, I want to talk about why the YN mindset is slowly ruining society. Rapper King Von, who died back in 2020, might be the poster boy for this conversation, because Von was not only the physical representation of what the YN term is associated with, which is a black face, but King Von was also big on being a menace to society. That's what Von not only spoke about in his music, but he took pride in being the way he was. And then he got himself into an altercation in November 2020 and got himself killed. Now Von is just many, but he was a famous rapper, so he managed to at the very least reap the rewards from operating this way. Through the means of making a bunch of money from his music, he gained a lot of notoriety, fame, and recognition during his short-lived career. And although Von isn't here anymore, his music continues to influence kids all over the world in a negative way.
You say you want to come ride with us? Yeah. What you gonna do though, like, if you get caught?
I ain't snitch.
Alright.
I actually went to juvie because I teacher was scissors.
What?
I chased my teacher with scissors.
What?
I chased my teacher with scissors and I stabbed.
That's not good, nigga. Why are you telling people that like that's something good? Nigga, talk about I went to juvie. I actually chased my teacher with scissors. Bro, somebody shoot the. Never mind. Ooh. Fuck. Somebody get this little nigga. This nigga finna grow up and be a motherfucking menace. He chasing teachers with scissors. Somebody get him before he become chasing shit. Alright. It start out with teachers with scissors and it ends with your kids and bullets. I'm just trying to tell you how it start and how it finish. It's crazy.
Kings, you gotta chill though, but that's not cool.
Huh?
It's not cool to be bad.
It is cool. You know why?
Why?
Because I'm just trying to be like my idol,
Who your idol?
King Von.
What?
Now that clip that I just played you, I thought was some kind of like skit when I, first came across it, but it's actually real. Here we have a young black boy around the age of 10 or 12 being asked about riding around with grown men on a robbery spree. He's bragging about having been to juvie, how he hurt his teacher, and that King Von influenced him to be this way. And by the way, the title of this YouTube short, which is over 5 million views, is Crazy YN Chased His Teachers with Scissors. Now the question I had when I seen this video was, why is this adult male in the car making these suggestions to this kid? That's a whole nother issue, right? But this is something we don't talk about often enough. It's not just thousands. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of young people, might be in the millions at this point, adopting a similar way of thinking, being, and moving. And sadly, most of them are young black teens. But then again, like we stated, it's not a race thing, but more of a cultural thing. We're gonna dive into that later. And for the more mature crowd watching this video, right, who may not be on social media or even have, let's say, young nephews, nieces, or children growing up in this, new age of social media, a lot of you guys might actually be confused and completely in the dark about this YN mindset that I'm talking about. Maybe this is the first time you're hearing about this. If that's the case and you enjoy this conversation so far, drop a like on this video, right? For others, especially all the younger people who watch
taking
this channel,
cookies.
you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. And then we have people like myself kind of in the middle where I'm connected to it in a lot of ways and I see what's happening, but obviously I'm old enough to have enough sense to know how dysfunctional it is for society in general. First, we got to get clear about one thing, which is the YN term is a term that propagates a negative stereotype of black boys. For most people who know about this term and what it means, when they think about it, what probably pops up in their mind visually is a young black teen with a ski mask, maybe a company with a Glock 45, robbing people and being a menace. And that's something I personally think
that nigga said
Glock
45.
Like it is, and there's some reasons behind it, and we're going to get into that later on. Now, the term to me isn't actually the issue, as crazy as it sounds, because if it stopped at just being words, there wouldn't be anything to talk about. The biggest problem is the mindset behind it and the energy it carries. For anyone who's heard the term YN, you've also probably heard crash out. Crash out is more of a mainstream way way of describing when someone completely loses control, acts off emotion, ego, or pain with no thought for the consequences that may follow. I think Duke Dennis, who's a popular streamer, he explained it perfectly.
Crashing out is making a decision in a split second that could throw your whole life away. That's what crashing out is. Crashing out is, I'm ready to die about it. I'm ready to go to jail about it right now. Whole time the situation is not even worth going to jail about or dying about.
And shout out to Duke Dennis for the very proper explanation. In other words, you lose all logic and reasoning and let your emotions guide you towards an action that completely messes up your whole life when it could have been avoided. And these two terms, YN and crashing out, they're very connected.
Go
One
together.
of them, crash out, describes a general way of behaving without taking the person into account. So crash out can be about just about anybody, right? It can be about someone who's 15 years old, or it can be about someone who's 85 years old. YN is, however, catered towards the younger generation. And like we stated,
Somebody
it's often
getting
associated
robbed
with
on
young
the
black
ring
teens.
camera.
Now the
It's
question is, what is considered YN behavior? Well, let's put it like this, right? Anything that's reckless, belligerent, and violent. So let me give a few examples, right? Smash and grabs are a prime example of this. Back in 2020, specifically around
That's
the
when
time
it
of
was
the
heavy.
2020 riots, we saw a spike in a very specific type of crime, and it was called smash and grabs. Smash and grabs, for anyone who doesn't know, is a term that describes a type of crime where a bunch of people run into a store, most times being a designer clothing store or a place where they have expensive jewelry, computers, etc. They break the windows, they run inside, take a bunch of shit, and they just dip, right? A lot of this was happening in the major cities in the US like New York, Los Angeles, etc. I think a lot that was happening can be connected to the things that were going on politically during that time, yes. But I think the pandemic and COVID-19 was a turning point for sure. I don't know about you, but I noticed how humans became way more, disconnected from each other after 2020 overall, and the way we interacted with each other as humans, right? But also what people were willing to do to others as far as hurting their fellow human beings. So with that shift, I noticed, and maybe you noticed this as well, I noticed how a lot of crimes were becoming way more vicious. You started hearing more and more about old people getting beat up and robbed. Gang violence became way more intense in communities all over the world, and kids started getting caught in the middle of it more often. People started having less and less concern for each other, and individualism, I would say, is at an all-time high right now, especially after 2020. But around 2020, this thing called smash and grabs became a common occurrence. Some of y'all might have seen a lot of those videos of a bunch of teens
This
running
nigga
inside
holding the door?
let's say a clothing or electronic store, stealing a bunch of clothes, laptops, and iPhones, and sometimes they
Holding the
arrive in
door.
big ass groups, right? All ski masked up, looking like Pooh Shiesty.
Sunday, a group of thieves stole from the Nike store in East LA. We are blurring their faces here because they appear to be juveniles. And last week, a flash mob robbery occurred at the Americana at Brand, one of developer Rick Caruso's properties. He says despite their sophisticated
Saint
security
Laurent.
systems and armed guards, it still happened.
And sometimes they arrive by themselves, like this man at this Apple store, and they, clean out the whole spot.
What the fuck? What the fuck? No, he's going crazy. No, he's going crazy.
Not only did he clean out the whole spot of all their iPhones, put all the phones in his boxers, but he did all that and literally walked past a police car. If that ain't talent, bravery,
Like,
and
what the
confidence, and one, I don't know what it is. But all jokes aside, right? This is what people associate a YN with. And although the image that pops up in people's heads is a black male or teen rocking a Pooh Shiesty ski mask, let's focus on the behavior itself, because that's what we're talking about. The YN mindset is a way of behaving, operating, and seeing the world. You don't think the consequences of your actions will catch up to you. Like this clip of this white kid talking a bunch of trash to a police officer and getting manhandled.
Okay, get out of the seat. Yeah. Let me get your ID.
You ain't gonna get shit.
What?
Well, what you laughing for? I'm writing your shit. Take it off.
And we're gonna cut it right there because YouTube is very strict these days, okay? Let's just say that the end result was the young man begging for mercy on the ground, okay? Now, rap music has been a huge proponent of pushing the normalization of the YN mindset. And this is something I've spoken about on here for years in different contexts. We've seen countless young rappers crashing out for absolutely no reason, whether it's home invasions turned deadly in the TK case, or killing one of the most famous drill rappers at the time, Pop Smoke, when you're only 15 years old. That's a concoction of crash out and YN behavior. And you often see memes about this kind of thing, but I've yet to see an actual real conversation about what's created this phenomenon and why it needs to be abolished. We're talking about young people in large amounts, acting reckless, belligerent, hurting people in the process without any regard for how it's going to affect their lives and others. And it's also not that the older generation, let's say the 80s babies, weren't on demon time during the crack era, okay? Because they obviously were. Just ask your parents. It's just that we keep on seeing more recklessness and more innocent people getting caught in the middle of it. And a lot of this is being televised to an entire generation of young children children through social media. And the number one, commonality that I've observed in this type of behavior is structure or lack thereof. Often we see this type of behavior in society, either in your own backyard or in close proximity to you or the people you love. You'll notice how a lot of these young boys, right? Specifically young boys, because young girls aren't out here like putting on ski masks and like robbing stores, right?
Shit.
Most times they're not. In 99% of the cases, they're not, right? You'll notice how a lot of these young boys come from fatherless households, and 9 times out of 10, they were most likely raised by a single mother. A lot of times we also see another thing, which is they either come from an impoverished background. If not that, at the very least, we're talking about a working class background. And here's the thing. What happens when a father is absent in a lot of cases? Well, according to the studies, this has been very well documented. They say the following. Research shows when a child grows up in a father-absent home, he or she is 4 times more likely to live in poverty, more likely to suffer emotional and behavioral problems. Children of single mothers show higher levels of aggressive behavior than children born to married mothers. And number 4 is very major because it kind of goes hand in hand with this topic, and that is more likely to go to prison. 1 in 5 prison inmates had a father in prison. And then at number 5, which is very, very, very important for this topic, more likely to commit crime. Study of juvenile offenders indicate that family structure significantly, significantly predicts delinquency. Number 8, we have more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol. And then at number 10, we have 2 times more likely to drop out of high school. Now, obviously, not every single teen who comes from this type of background ends up committing brazen crimes or acts belligerent or shows a lack of self-control in spaces occupied by others, right? And the question is, why is that? Well, there's a couple angles to this. First of all, a big one that's not emphasized is personality. You can come from the worst conditions and have every single obstacle against you known to mankind. If you're not naturally inclined to be this type of person, you're not going to put on a mask and start robbing old folks, right? And on the other hand, you can come from a household of love, 2 loving parents. Your name could be Clarence, and if you find the idea of being a menace to society appealing, then that's the path you're going to go down. And then we, of course, have a mix of this along with environmental influences, which we'll touch on later. Aside from that, another aspect of this is back in the day, there used to be this thing called a rite of passage, something you did that marks the transitional phase of your life into adulthood. And this rite of passage added a layer of accountability to them as people, and it set a precedent that said you're now responsible for your own life, so act accordingly. Nowadays, we don't have any of that. Culturally, things are less structured. I mean, this young new generation doesn't really even know how to follow authority. Just take a look at what's happening with teachers and their students now.
Disrespect from students.
Teacher
In
leave.
the 3 years that I've been teaching, I've been cussed at countless times. I've been called fat. I've been called a B word.
A lot of the young people from this generation think that following basic instructions like sit down or put your phone down is a sign of disrespect. A lot of the youth who adopt this Hawaiian mindset actually come from loving households. They didn't have to worry about missing meals or going to sleep without a blanket, only, showering with cold water, sleeping on the floor, eating rice and beans, you feel me? A lot of them have been spoiled to the point where consistency in their household or outside suddenly turns into a prison, which is why they're often looking for excitement in the outside world. And that excitement leads them down a road where they start acting out in ways that not only put themselves in danger, but the rest of us that want nothing to do with any of this. And a lot of the young boys who fall into this category, right, of kind of having this Hawaiian mindset, a lot of them just have no identity. They don't know who they are. They don't know what they want in life. They don't know where they're actually going. And it doesn't help that they don't have any real life positive and tangible influences around them as a symbol for what they can become. On top of that, as soon as they head over to Instagram,
he's saying you ain't got no identity. You gotta find your identity.
Whether it's people acting out in public and fighting, or things like videos of people who look just like them, white, black, purple, not color specific, terrorizing innocent people by being belligerent, ruthless, and a menace to society. And that validates their way of living, and it plans to see that then normalizes this way of living in their mind. When you're spending more time with a screen that's made to program your mind in a negative way than with real people, is it really a surprise that so many of these young kids are turning out this way? I don't really think so. And speaking of the identity thing, because I think this is worth hitting on a little more, I think this is the core of the issue actually. Notice how a lot of the, in this case, the YNs who fall in this category, right, they tend to roll in packs. Now, why is it that people who exude this, I'm a savage mindset don't have the confidence to walk in the streets by themselves? You're supposedly this tough guy who likes to prey on a weak, and you'll beat up anybody who tests you, and you love to cause ruckus practice in the streets, but you don't have enough cojones to go outside by yourself. Let me tell you why that is. It's because a lot of these young men don't have an identity. They find their sense of security in the group because they don't have a sense of themselves. And the only time they can be themselves is when they're around a pack of 13 other YNs who think just like them. That's how they feel safe being them. They don't have any home training. They don't know what it means to conduct themselves in a public setting and be one with their environment. They're loud, they're aggressive, and they're repelling, honestly. So a lot of this stems from not knowing who they are, a lack of identity. And the natural response to that, rebellion, validated by the approval of the group. So their way of belonging is by being posted up with others who they feel have the same mission as them. The only oxymoron is the mission is obviously dysfunctional and it adds no value to society at all. And the thing is, there's a reason why a lot of these young men are so quick to crash out, catching felonies through stealing, robbing, and in some cases even taking a life. We've seen that in hip-hop, right? To them, catching a charge or crashing out, that's not a loss to them because they never felt like they even had a real place in society to begin with. If you're someone who, let's say you're in this demographic of people who could fall into this, the thing that's kind of gonna sway you from moving, all crazy and crashing out and being a YN, right? It's seeing the other paths that are available for you to walk in. Let's say you have a hobby you're passionate about. Maybe you like to sing, rap, write music, paint, health and fitness. Maybe you want to be the next Kai Cenat. Actually, don't try to be the next anybody. Just be you, right? Or you're in trading school, medical school, or you just graduated high school and you have plans to do something with your life. It's the options that are available for you that's gonna make you not want to throw your life in our communities. So it's on us to clean it up, because when one of these YNs robs an 80-year-old lady and she slips and hits,
it's definitely ruining our society. W video.